we have 4 of the select board here as well. Andy is not here at the present time. So thanks, everybody. Roger, thank you. Derek, thank you. If anybody else in the back wants to come and fill around, especially school committee members, come on up and take some seats if you wish. Okay, that's up to you. We're just going to save Anthea's seat. We assume she's going to be here. So, and Paris may or may not, but do with it as you wish. We're going to go through some budget like we did every year in January. It's a little later. We wanted Chris to be able to start. Well, we've done it in November and other years. Other things were happening. But we're going to hear from the manager's office, then schools, then capital. Derek, I want to leave some time for FinCom at the end, and you don't necessarily have a specific assignment if you'd like to opine broadly, I think, but I'd like to hear from the other key kind of departments. So that's how we'd like it to go, kind of presentations. Do you all want to take questions during or after? What's people's preference as we're going through? Okay. Maybe if you want to ask questions as we go, let's do that. And maybe we should, I hope that we'll be out of here in 75 to 90 minutes. So with that, if you can start us off, at least pull it up for us, Stacy, and go through what we're going to talk on the municipal side. We're going to go through the things on the left, then we're going to go to the school department, and then Roger, hopefully you have some talking points for kind of current year, future year for capital. If you have slides, Andrew, or we need to screen share, how are we going to do that? Do we have them?
I think Patty has them.
Patty has them? Okay.
As well.
We have schools update when we need it. Can we pivot to put them up on the screen?
That's what I hate come in and ask. I haven't put it on my little flash drive, and I wanted to know if you wanted me to print them out.
Yeah, we'll just go on the left.
So that's what, no, wait a minute. Is that what you sent me? Well,
No, I haven't
Tim,
sent it.
Not me, no.
you haven't sent me anything, so no, it's not up on the,
I haven't had it once we're ready.
okay.
Or if you want to just work on that with Patty while we go through our municipal stuff, I want to make sure we're ready, Andrew, for whatever you want to share. Okay, so with that, we can go to the next slide. This is a lot of Stacy's work, so thank you, Stacy, for. This looks like our water and sewer usage chart, actually, when you think about it. Wet summers, dry summers. Turnbacks, so that's reversions at the end of the year. You can see in this, Stacy looked at about 10 years back. So the high year was obviously the COVID year, but generally, Stacy, we're in it, 1.2 to 1.8-ish. Is that about where you'd be at a midpoint? Just under 2 million?
Yeah, I would say so.
Anything we want to say about this slide, other than it goes up and it goes down?
Yeah, these are always difficult to predict. Everyone asks, what are the turnbacks going to be? It's like, I ask the departments this time of year, and they say they're going to spend everything. So that's my answer. It's 0.
Okay, and then this is free cash use and retained earnings.
Oh, these are certifications.
Certifications?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, sure. This is, again, the 10 years, just looking at how our free cash has grown. Obviously, this is a big component of our operating reserve. It's one piece of it. There's another small piece. And then we have the yellow is water and sewer retained earnings. That kind of fluctuates, of course, with consumption and wet summers, dry summers, all that good stuff. Any rate increases. And then the recreation retained earnings. That's kind of, it's been growing, which is good. And then we have the historical free cash usage, and the orange is just additional things, supplemental articles, things like that at town meeting, whereas the blue is we're funding the subsequent year's budget. So as you can see, before we did the FY20 override, our use of free cash to balance the budget was growing and growing, and then we only used a little bit for FY19 because we knew in FY20 we were going to have the money, and then it's kind of growing again. And these orange bits, and actually this whole slide, if you ever want to see all the detail, I do a comptroller report for each fall town meeting, and in there's a list of the last couple years of how we've used our free cash, and there's like just the articles and how much and what it was for, and you can go back to those reports. They're posted on the comptroller's page, and they're also on the town meeting page, so it's a good resource. There's a lot of information in there, including, we'll get to that in a minute about local receipts. There's a lot of detail about what's in all the little local receipt categories for the last several years. But you can get the details of all this. And then here's a nice little slide that shows what our operating reserve is, and that's the general stabilization balance plus undesignated fund balance in the general fund as a percentage of our total revenue. So it's been growing. This year was a little bit of a dip, and I'm sure at the end of FY26, I think the estimates right now are probably in the 15% range, just based on how, it's all going to depend on how much free cash we use to balance the budget.
And before you move on.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so right now, our current select board operating reserve policy is to stay 6 to 10. If an override were to pass, we're going to ramp that up from 6 to 10 to 10 to 14 and go up kind of 1 year at a time. So 7% will be the floor, then 8%, then 9%, to get to a floor of 10% within 4 years of the override passing. And then it will go up from 10 to 14. So right now before we have to balance next year's budget, we're still sitting pretty well above the top end of our average. But we also know that we've got, budget pressures that we've been talking about for months. So.
And that's been driven by Moody's really indicating that they thought our operating reserve policy was too low relative to other communities.
I wonder if we'll want to revisit doing the steps or just bumping it to 10 to 14, given that our current policy was if we have an override, and if we have an override, I don't think we would be above 10%.
Yeah, we can certainly revisit. It's all moot if we don't have an override. We can, I agree, revisit at a faster pace. I believe the policy we voted on is a 2% jump, so it's over 2 years.
Okay,
It goes
not 4.
8 and then 10, but I agree. I mean, we can't. I agree with the comments that all of you are making. That I think that was Mike. That Moody's is communicated it's too low. That if we could stay at this level and deal with the budget pressure we have facing, the current level is fine. We don't have to move that kind of crisis today, but that we also really can't go into the single digits. So I think those are not, to me, those are all comments are actually all quite consistent with each other.
No, I think that's it for the historical data. Now we hop into some of the draft projections that Mark, Chris, and I have been working on. We have local receipts, which we try to be conservative yet realistic. We don't want to be too low, although the FY26 budget is a bit low because we had an extra about $600, $1,000 that sort of came to us with state aid increases and new growth increases that we hadn't anticipated.
Excise tax was also high. Yep.
Yes. So looking at the FY26 budget that was presented when come budget time back last year, these were a little bit higher, but because we have to balance the recap when new growth comes in and state aid is solidified, we have to sort of find a way to reduce revenue where other areas it increased. So FY26 budget is low. So we really looked at an average of FY23 and 25, and even some of the FY25 actuals weighed a little bit heavier when looking at the averages. So we came up with what we feel is realistic. Will some of these numbers be too high? Possibly. Will they be too low? Possibly. But we just have to wait to see how FY26 closes, and then we can see how our numbers for 27 actually can work, because the DOR won't let you increase your estimates if the actuals don't come in at that level unless you have concrete changes to your fees or your plans, which there are some things that came out of the state of the town process that we can look into and potentially increase. So we have a little bit of flexibility. Not a ton, but a little. Anything?
Do you know why there was such a big bump in FY25?
What, for excise?
Yeah.
I think it was just, it's probably a combination of things.
I think electric vehicle rebates were expiring.
Yes.
So everyone ran out and got a Rivian.
Yes. That's exactly what it was.
I did look at the motor vehicle commitment, the very first one, and it is higher than last February. Last February it was I think 3.3 million, and this we just got is 3.5. So there is a $200,000 increase in the commitment, but those increases from last year, they might have come with the second and third commitment, so we'll have to see how that comes out. But we're doing 4.7, which I think is a pretty good place to start anyway.
Yeah, it's a little bit in between. If you kind of take
Yeah.
away, if to Stacy's point, some of FY26 is maybe artificially low. So
Yeah, I
if you
wouldn't look at
25 and, 4.4, 4.9, we're sort of landing at 4.7.
Yeah.
That might, depending on how the next quarter of this fiscal year goes,
Yeah.
maybe that 4.7 is right. Maybe it should be closer to that 4.9, but yeah, because a lot of it was expiring rebates, but maybe there's still just a lot of buying behavior that isn't
Demand,
driven by
right.
electric vehicles.
And
But it was
so-
a rather big spike.
So there might be a little bit of room here. I know there's been talk of like, let's increase the interest in the investment earnings. I mean, we never know what that's going to be. It's been high the last couple of years just due to the cash flow situation with the Lynch money that we've had. But that's going to be gone. We've basically spent all that. And just with interest rates, the market's changing, obviously. But, so that's where we've landed so far. I don't know, Chris, if you want to add anything.
I think it's important that everyone go out to eat locally and buy a new car.
yeah.
Right? That's the most
Buy a new
important.
car.
Because they made me increase that to 300,000, so.
Well, I mean, if we took the comptroller's report and said revenue through December, we would have had $360,000. So I think the 300 might be reasonable. Question for Andrew on the Medicaid reimbursement. We've always been in that 115, 100 to 30. Is that tracking? I don't know how often you're doing Medicaid claiming. Is it quarterly on the school side?
It's quarterly, yeah.
And are you on pace, do you think, in that 125, 130 range this year? Does that look?
I believe so, yeah. We've gotten put a little more time in some areas, cleaning up some processes and make sure we're trying to get every reimbursement we can.
Yep.
Around, they track time on, like, in the buildings, and so we had to report that on time.
Okay.
So yeah, I think we're on track for the 125 or so.
Okay, good. I mean, I didn't think it was going to go up by much, but I wanted to make sure it wasn't necessarily dropping or that claims were somehow getting denied. Okay. Thanks, Stacy.
No problem, that budget's probably low, but some of these are kind of
Well,
low.
again, that 26 is probably artificial, but I think the
Yeah.
look back, 115 to 130 is kind of where school-based reimbursement's been.
So here's the revenue assumptions, still draft, for the overall like revenue picture, which includes obviously the property tax revenue. We take last year's base, we add the new growth, add 2.5%. The capital and building stabilization piece, those grow 2.5%. The new growth, this is still just the assessor's recommendation is 750. We can do some math if we wanted to figure out when some of this new development's going to come into the rolls, but we just left it at where it was given by the assessor. Yeah, sorry, I'm reading while I'm talking. Water and sewer, that's based on the Chapter 110, the 86.45% of the debt and capital assessments. Right now, the capital assessments are at 10% as an estimate, which will probably be a little bit high, but this is an in and an out, so this isn't going to really impact the bottom line. It will impact your taxes, but it's not going to impact the overall deficit, I should say. Yeah. Well, the water and sewer. And then the debt exclusion, same thing. These are based on debt estimates right now. It's what we've currently received from Hilltop, our debt and financial advisor. There are a couple estimates embedded in that number right now, but there's still some room for change because we haven't issued the debt yet. State revenue, this is the governor's budget. At this time of year, we usually use that as the state revenue. It came in just the other day. And I think the only year we don't use it is if the governor position changes and then they have more time to release their numbers. Local receipts, we just went over that
That's
slide.
the cherry sheet, the 13,436.
13.8.
13.8 for 20.
That's in House 1 that just came out, right?
No,
No,
the
that's governor's.
Oh, it's the governor's,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Still a few more steps. And the stabilization fund transfers in, that's tied to debt service as well, and it's just current, what Hilltop currently prepared for us. There will be some tweaks. And then enterprise funds, those are the indirects. Those are just based on an allocation calculation. Parking meter usually funds some of operations in different departments. There's police enforcement, there's treasurer's office collections, all that good stuff. That fund kind of got depleted a little bit because we didn't have parking at Laraway for a good, couple years for the T? How many years?
3
Might have
plus.
seemed like forever.
We're going to pay it back.
Yeah, sure.
Get right on that.
I can't even get them to bill me to pay them for the work that they do on our behalf, so.
The universe.
Well, I would like to pay off.
Send them to get the Morocco culvert going on,
Oh,
please.
jeez. And then the cemetery usually funds 70 grand for cemetery operations out of the perpetual care fund. And then this 80 grand is the health insurance stabilization fund. We just moved 70 grand in at the fall town meeting, and now we might need to take it out. Because we got a 14.4 potential increase. It might not be 15, but it was probably going to be 14.4 health insurance increase, so this will help a little bit. And then this other stuff for free cash. We didn't put it in.
Before any plan design changes?
That's
Or any
no
anything.
changes,
Yeah.
yeah. They did drop the GLP-1 plan, funding, coverage, I should say, for anyone that's not diabetic. So they used to have it covered just like weight loss programs, and they've pulled it out of their plan altogether, and that doesn't have to be negotiated. So that, I
That
think.
was their reasoning for the increases, though. I mean,
Yeah, which seems
Right.
weird, because I
Yeah.
thought that I thought the number that they gave us at 15 was if those were still in there. So they've taken those out.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's gonna happen there. So we just based it on their high average, which is 14.4 that they released. But we'll get to that slide in a second. And the fund balance and free cash, we use free cash to fund the strategic maintenance program, which has been in place for several years. And this reserve for debt premium is just a small piece that the state makes us do. We received premiums back, 20 years ago that we've been allocating to the debt service every year until it goes away. Hopefully it'll go away soon. And then overlay, we had asked the assessors if they would release some of their overlay. We did the calculation to see how much was available, and we can take up to, I think, about 450,000. So this is all kind of stuff we've all been talking about with state of the town and that. Any questions here? Of course, this assumes no override yet. And this free cash isn't real. We'll probably have something here.
Yeah.
And so just some other things to talk about. Overlay funds. Every year we reserve overlay to pay for abatements and exemptions. And if we don't have any receivables to apply that overlay to, we're able to release it. And so that becomes a budgeting source for any legal appropriation. So we try to just use it to balance the budget if there is stuff to release. And we review that every year. And the unused prior unallocated wage account. So I didn't have anything in there for now because we have $340,000 in that fund for FY26. We're probably going to use it all at the Springtown meeting to settle some of the collective bargaining agreements. And if we don't use it all, it closes to the general fund free cash. So we'd have to reappropriate free cash to do any of the increases associated with, I think it's police and fire, both police and fire still haven't settled, although fire is pretty much wrapped up. So that'll be at the Springtown meeting.
Easy question for you. The overlay fund, so there's a line in the budget that's called reserve fund, which is 400,000.
Yeah.
Is that the overlay fund, or is the overlay fund?
No, it's something
That's the
different.
FinCom control reserve.
That's the FinCom.
Yeah,
fund.
the overlay, you'll see every year we appropriate money in it.
It's in the
and
general levy.
It's in the,
It's at the top.
I'll show you,
Yeah.
it might be on the next screen. I might have left it up. But then we have the health insurance stabilization fund. We had sort of a guide to say we'll leave at least 2% of whatever the health insurance budget is in that fund to keep it growing. But we've been kind of pulling everything we can out of it. So this year there'll probably be between 80 and 90 by the time Springtown meeting comes. So I put in 80 grand for now.
Stacy, just
Yes.
really quickly, and I apologize if we covered this tomorrow.
That's okay.
But you said there was an interesting override. But a lot of the state of the town revenue side work that we did, is that factored in?
No, in the local receipts, if we do some of those things, we can increase the local receipts. But right now, we haven't done any of those things. So for
Okay.
our February 15th budget, we can't necessarily put them in, but by the time FinCom and town meeting happens, we might have a new building fee or a new fee here and there that might actually increase this. And the same thing with the transfer station. If the rates change, if we do something with that, we can bake that into.
Okay.
So the local receipts in the model is 12,288,000. So I think it's $12,000 lower. So we'll add 12,000 in.
Okay.
Pretty darn close.
I added a few here because
Enough for government.
That's like rounding.
Yeah.
So it's off by
Yeah.
12,000.
Yeah, it's okay.
Go find
We
that
made,
12,000.
we made an increase to the meals tax because I eat out every day for lunch, so you're welcome.
But then the way it works is all those other ideas go both like down below as like things you can turn on and off.
Yeah, okay.
But good
Yeah,
question,
there's some
Stephanie. So
potential growth here.
we're kind of landing at the same thing, maybe with most of the same triggers as well. But to Stacy's point, some of those assumptions of finding additional revenue will be maybe by the end of this calendar year, but maybe in queue for FY27 on a plan to do some updates, pursue some solar, those other leases. When we'll realize that, I think we'll know more probably by Springtown meeting.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But yeah.
And just on the big one you mentioned is health insurance, because health insurance is, I mean, we have 90 grand in the account, you said,
Yes.
About 80.
80.
but the budget is 18.7 million.
Yeah, you know, it's fun and sensitive.
No, but like the big thing you said is that it's coming in at 14.6, not at 17. I mean, that's
Well, we
the
had
big news.
15 and we dropped it down to 14.4 because 14.4 was Maya's max in their range. We're assuming the max because we had a pretty high ratio. What's the ratio called? The raise.
Loss.
The loss ratio. You think you know that? Was over 100. So I have a feeling we're going to get the max. But it would be great if we didn't, and the GLP-1s impacted that calculation, and maybe we'll get less. And the Medicare plans, I have a 10% increase in there, where in the past I did a 5%, and we got killed with 17% and then 12%, so I was too low, so I did 10%.
And if the state changes the minimum plan on February 12th, I think it was,
Yeah.
the meeting, the GIC, can that number come down at all? Like,
We could look at our plan and see what kind of changes, how much room there is in our deductibles and co-pays to see if it's worth it. It could, because we also we don't just have the 100% of savings, we have to put 25% away, which does help with, you know, the employees' cost sharing. So it's not a complete waste, but it might not be enough to even move the needle, and it's kind of a process, which is fine if it was worth it. We've done that like 3 times since I've been here.
just a 1% differential there is $200,000, right? It's just such a big number. 1% does move the
When I was at the MMA this past week, I was at the Mass Municipal Association. I met our rep. We talked, and he promised me a call this week. Well, probably next week at this point with the snow. And I told him we did mine in Cohasset. I've been with him a long time. I said, anything you can do, let's have a conversation.
Well, because I think Ken had told us the state's voting on the new baseline
Benchmark.
Yeah, the
benchmark
benchmark
plan
plan.
on February 12th.
Yeah.
So if they drop it materially, it's something we need.
Yeah.
It should, yeah, in theory, could benefit us.
And if we're okay, I mean, not that 14.4 is great, we went through this process last year because we were at like 20, and
19,
we brought it down to 14
14.
or 14.88 or something like that.
But 14 coming down to 12 is
Yeah.
makes a huge difference for
Yeah.
us.
So we'll see what the math is, and we'll have Ken on the numbers. We honestly, we try whatever we can possibly do. We've changed our vision plan to be part of the Maya group so that we can drop a percent or a 0.5%. We've bought in retirees that were not Medicare eligible to drop the percent. So we've been really trying to keep this as low as it possibly can for both the town and the enrollees, the members. And so here's the slide on the projected expenses, and this is still draft. I mean, Chris has been here for what, a minute? And 2 minutes? And, you know, Steve, Mark, and I went through some of the department requests. Steve and Mark met with all of the department, well, not all of them, most of them, and went through the numbers, reviewed their requests, made some cuts, supported some of the asks. And the only real asks that you can see here on the municipal side, the general government, like this is level, most of this is all level service, which I think was the message. Obviously, with the state of the town is, you know, there's other things going on. But as far as the 6% growth in general government, we have added inspector hours to full-time because they're part-time now.
Building inspectors.
Building inspectors. We have 3 part-timers. And then the IT, there's some requirements, like some cyber requirements and risk assessment things that we want to put in place that are crucial. Biennial OPEB actuarial study, that's about 10 grand every other year, so you're going to see a little bit blip in the audit budget. And then the town clerk, the election this year, there's not much going on, but next year there's a governor
There's
primary
a September
and
primary, a governor's
Yeah.
race.
and so
There'll be a
there's
town election.
It's not an election, is it?
yeah, so she
Which,
built that
right,
up.
the governor and senate will be November, so there'll be 3 elections
So
next
she's
year.
bumped that up, knowing that.
Yeah, that's well, the building inspector folks. We had $80,000, $86,000 in the state of the town, and our strategic additions starting next year. Nothing for FY27. So has that moved?
We have not moved that based on that. I think they're in 27.
or I haven't presented a budget yet though, so this is
Yeah.
just where we are today, so
Yeah.
we're still talking this.
I'm just saying if you know, our building inspectors, the building department heads view is he needs that now as opposed to in a year, we should just sink these.
Did they bring up the fact to push it out a year? Is that why it's been pushed out a year in the state of the town?
That was what they had submitted originally.
Oh, okay. All
When
right.
you, when you
So-
go back to August. Yeah.
Okay, that, I had no idea. I'm sure it was there, and just didn't get it. So there's a line here called unallocated wages, and this is very preliminary, and it's just to sort of account for what we think is gonna be happening. Now, this FY '26 budget increase, that hopefully covers police and fire's FY '26 ask. I'm not saying that they're gonna settle by '26, but we had to put it in here to show like the '26 cost. And then the '27 cost assumes the police, the fire, and a non-union COLA. So that's, I mean, basically, police and fire, you gotta double that, 438, to come up with.
And similar to schools, I know you're getting to the finish line on some of your collective bargaining, but because the contracts expire June 30, we may be paying out at the end of this year or into next year wages that were due July
Yeah.
of 2025. So that's why that balance looks high. It could be paying all of, this current year, it could be paying part of next year. So we're carrying, well, it's just kind of it's a liability that we want to make sure we're budgeting for, depending on when we settle these various contracts.
Yeah.
But we've settled several on the municipal side. I know schools is close to settling some, so the more we can get things done within this fiscal year, we'll have a better sense of next year, but they got to get paid one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, fire has basically settled, and in that 438 is a number for fire, because police hasn't, so that might shift to 27, that piece that
Yeah.
we're not funding in 26 will shift to 27. But then as we scroll down, we did school department 4%, both pieces, we're still waiting for some vocational information, I'm not sure who has that. Who did you reach out to today?
Our school committee rep,
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
hear back.
And Andrew, I don't know if you have that information yet, Andy, at all?
No, we've been,
Our vocational census, do we know that?
we have our census, but the schools have not set the tuition. So we've reached out for some more information, so we're sort of like, I'll have some numbers probably next week, kind of carrying what we know, kind of inflating and
Yep.
go from there, hoping for the best.
And the
Yeah.
capital, they give us like quarterly assessments for the new building in Wakefield. It seems like I get copied on some things.
And they
It
have
seems
that,
about a quarterly
their debt
basis.
schedule for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that 4 for the school is just based on what was discussed back between 3.75 and 4 back in the day, so this is still.
Those are heady days.
Yeah. This is it's just in there for now. Energy, we dropped that a little bit because we removed some Lynch light and power costs. We'll see how that goes. I'm not sure what the status of that is for FY '26 with the solar power and with the solar panels. But the rest of the stuff, contributory retirement, that's based on the actuarial table. Workers' comp, we had a pretty heavy case load, so we just added a little bit of money there. Unemployment, it's been about 100. We sometimes need more money, sometimes we have a little bit of a turn back. I think we'll need more money this year in FY '26, but we'll see how that goes. Health insurance, we've already talked about that. It does, the reason why it says 16.2% and not 14.4 or less is because we do add 5 family plans, 5 individual plans, and a couple Medicare plans for retirees and some active plans for retirees. So that's why it's going up more than the 14.4.
Because not everybody's in Maya.
Yeah.
So we've gone back and forth on this contributory retirement, which is a big number, 7.7 million. Is that all to the pension?
Yes, all
Yes.
pension.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
350, if we did 350 VOPEB this year, which has been our practice, that would need to be on top of that.
Yes, yeah. I didn't include some of the stuff in
Oh,
here
yeah.
that, the transfers to the building stabilization capital, I didn't put that stuff in here that's been like recurring, but
But you do have 350 built in.
350 is built in the model, yeah. And then, let's see, Medicare tax, we've got a lot of retro things settling. I added 100 grand and then 7.5%. Oh, okay.
I'm looking for paperwork.
Oh, and the general insurance, we've got a bunch of different plans. Maya's plan, I baked in a 10% increase, which might be high. And there's some vacancy policies, there's things that we don't really have a lot of control over. So that number could come down a little bit after we work a little bit with Maya, because they do our property and general liability. And environmental remediation, that's the transfer station, the landfill monitoring, and some other things that have come up during the year, and the reserve fund. Debt service, OSRA, is based on the current debt service tables that we have from Hilltop, but they're gonna change a little bit. And I
expect
thought
it to
everyone likes
change?
strategic maintenance, so I put it in there.
Yes, everyone does.
Even though it's the same.
Debt service might change, would that be, do we expect it to change for the good, for the bad, go back up to 14? Any, what would you
It'll
guess?
probably go up.
Yeah,
Yep, some of it will be funded through the stabilization fund, some of it will be debt exclusions. The only piece that's not funded by a dedicated source, I believe, is the Washington Swanton property, which we're gonna carry a ban. I think we're gonna just do a ban from now until July when we do other borrowing, so.
That was like the 580,000.
It's a little less
Yeah,
than
it's
that.
less.
But so almost all that, that's just an memo line. That's all the exclusions running through the high school.
No, that's everything for debt service, but that includes the exclusions, it includes the building stabilization and capital
So
funds.
I'm thinking the operating budget share of that is tiny.
Oh, small, yeah.
Because it's
So-
also Morocco boiler came off.
Yes.
Right. So
Yeah, so it's not, we have a debt, we have a Moody's call on February 12th, so we're gonna have to solidify our debt moves by the 9th. So we're gonna know these numbers for FY '27 relatively soon, hopefully by the time we do the book and stuff. But water sewer will change, we always have like a fall town meeting water sewer change because the MWRA assessments don't come in until June. So we kind of estimate things right now, and then we'll estimate again. FinCom will know a little bit more once FinCom meets. And we change some, we don't change some, but in the fall, we always change it. But that's not in these numbers. The water sewer rates and the water sewer budget are not, we don't really capture this here. It is part of the overall town's budget, but we're all kind of concerned with general fund.
And is that it? I think, is that your last slide?
Yes,
I thought.
unless
Okay.
there's a question.
FinCom questions? Anybody?
It's your meeting? So Stacy, where are we at?
What's that?
Where are we at?
Okay.
6.5
TikTok.
deficit?
Get off.
So with all that said, which is still very draft and preliminary, $6.5 million deficit.
I'll just point out, that's what schools and level services are for.
That's what for.
not 5.
Oh, that's it.
So
schools
put
at level
another,
services
put
for
another
4.
percent in there and
That's
you're over
for
7
4.
million.
I'm sorry, that was an important point. So that's assuming level services for schools.
I don't know if that's level
Four.
services, that was
No,
the number that was
that's
thrown out.
assuming 4%,
Oh,
and it's a $6 million deficit.
6.5.
4% level, it's 4% level
No,
or
it's
sub-level?
not. 5 is level. So
Okay.
my point
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that-
right, that's
My
right.
point is you're at 7.2 then.
Okay. Andrew, I think this is, or any additional questions?
Yeah.
For your, okay.
I did. Yeah.
Do you need the
Oh,
mouse?
do you want this, do you want this stuff?
Keyboard, the mouse, all
Do
the
you,
things?
do you need the control to get to the internet, or do they have the
No, Patty
file?
loaded it on.
Oh, you got it, sorry.
All right. Here.
So the only thing, before we move on to schools, and granted that the deficit that Stacy just described at 6.5, then throw in schools at 5, at 7, the town manager's budget will come out on February 15th, which is a weekend, so maybe it'll be Friday, or, maybe it'll be Friday the 13th, but there's potentially some additional things you might do, Chris, on local receipts, additional departmental asks. I mean, that building inspector question of, do you need them? If the state of the town thought that we were going to realize those new inspector hours in 28, are they going to come in 27? So there's a little bit, I'm not saying you're going to go find another $2 million hanging out anywhere, but you may adjust that when you do a little bit more of the work. I don't know if you want to talk about the process or who you've talked to so far. You've been here a minute, but we're giving you a budget to do, so.
So I have talked to Tom a couple times, so I'm going to go in now with Tom Kenny, the building inspector, and going through all the materials that were generated and say, okay, what can we do realistically? Because that has to come back to the select board for approval. And we're going to take a look at the solid waste rates as well. What can we do there? What's reasonable? And on some of the other departments too. What are things we can do? it makes sense to put them into place anyway, right? I mean, it's definitely good to the bottom line. If we want to have these for FY27, we need to get that together now.
So Michelle, why don't we send, I'll send it, I'll CC you to Chris, the original requests people had submitted and Steve Delaney's memo that
Yep.
was the follow-up, because I think that you can then track kind of August, November, basically February, which is almost where we are, and see, as you sort of bring your departmental requests forward.
Yeah, and Steve's memo was a nice summary as well, so, yes. I would have thought Steve left that for you, but
I think he did.
let's package it all up. We
You
can
probably
package
left
it
you a
up.
binder, but we'll
Yes.
we'll
talk more
laser stuff.
Makes sense.
And there's potentially a path to 13 on the revenue, because we always
Yep.
discuss.
Potentially.
Yes. You- Well,
There's a path.
I mean, the revenue is always done conservatively, and we always have discussion, and to be honest, the path's probably closer to 13 with the actuals and stuff. So,
So this is our tentative FY27 budget.
Tentative.
directionally correct.
Yes.
Uh,
For discussion purposes. which is why
The
we're-
draft preliminary.
Yes, draft, preliminary,
Tentative budget.
potential, tentative.
yeah. But so,
Week 2.
so we are discussing an override, and the flip side of discussing an override is if there is no override and the override doesn't pass, what are we looking at in terms of developing a budget that kind of addresses we need to go backwards? I don't think there's the appetite to $7.2 million in free cash to plug the budget. So
We're
we're
like 4.
yeah.
So that's fine.
Yeah. So where is the $3
sorry, Derek, what
million
did you say?
in?
Oh,
So I think that's a critical question at the end, like, what would we do, right, in a circumstance? It's probably, there's one view, which is we just budget, we just cut what we need to do to make it no free cash use. You can also layer on some levels of free cash use. I guess the question is, should we talk about that now, or should we talk about that after our colleagues present? Because
Yeah, sorry. I was not intending to have a deeper conversation about that before anyone else
Well, that's
talks.
an
I'm just
important
throwing that out.
No, but that is the key question. I think we have
We
to.
need to talk about.
Yeah.
But it's going to involve other.
Because I think, and Michelle and I said this last night to 40 town meeting members, one of the big things on February 9th is like, what's the plan if it passes, what's the plan if it fails? So I feel like we need their information, school committee information, but I do agree with you, Anthea, that's a key question.
Yeah, sorry, not to stop the conversation into schools and capital.
Haven't
We can
even
come back to
started.
my question. Right, exactly. I would like you to start the conversation.
You got the override failing.
Take it away whenever.
So, some of you have seen some of this before, like multiple times. I feel like we've been doing budget since June, and
We have. We have.
yeah. So just as kind of an update of where we are, I will say that we have settled with all but 2 of our 5 units. Unit A, voting closed at 5 o'clock. It's just like, it's like the presidential return. I have no idea. Yeah. Wait for the call. So we will know tonight whether that contract has been ratified. Obviously, that's our biggest contract. B and D and E are the remaining units. Those are smaller units, so they don't really have an impact in terms of just because of the size of the
Who
units
are they? I'm
themselves.
just curious. Who's D&E?
D is sped supervisors, and E is directors, content directors.
Thanks.
So the total number of FTEs is,
20.
yeah, so it's 20
Yeah.
FTEs. So it's a very small remaining population. Whereas teachers are, how many FTEs? Yeah, so just for perspective, for everyone's sake. So we've closed the 3 biggest ones already, hopefully.
We had a nice
Hopefully.
little pie chart in one of our other town that shows you the breakdown by unit.
I just couldn't remember. number. Okay.
So, as we always do, we go through, starting with our special education staffing, with our special education district placements, with our special education transportation, with our service providers, with multilingual learners, which is somewhat of an increasing population that we have been increasing services for. We go through and do the enrollment, look at enrollment at the elementary level, as you know, and I don't know if it's numbers exactly right, but I know that in the last 4 years we have cut at least 10, and I think it's more like 12 or 13 elementary sections because of the shifting enrollment that now is making its way into. So the incoming 6th grade is, the middle school right now is the highest enrollment is going to be for a long time. So the incoming 6th grade is about 50 or so kids less than the current 6th grade. So over the next 3 years, we are kind of on track to see a reduction in enrollment at the middle school between 75 and 150. It's a little bit different, obviously, at the middle school and the high school because we don't have self-contained classrooms and teachers, kids travel between teachers, so, they have a schedule. So it's not, it's a little bit different, but we have, I think, done a good job the last few years kind of eating some of the enrollment increases that we had at the middle school. We've done that at the high school to this point for the most part. We've not had a lot of ads. Most of our ads have been related to special education. But as you'll see tonight, part of our ask is to address what is becoming increasingly difficult scheduling situations for kids because we really don't have enough staff in certain areas to be able to provide. And I'm not talking kids having carte blanche, getting everything they want, but we should be able to relatively guarantee certain courses for kids in their pathway through the 4 years of the high school. We have structural deficits, which we are looking to offset in this budget. The athletics program, as we've talked about before, we've kind of lived off the revolving account for athletics for several years. We had, like every other account, we came out of COVID with a healthy balance for that. We've actually not really increased the athletic budget. I don't think more than 3% in 1 year or so in the last 4 years. We've done some adjustments. The school committee's done some adjustments with fees, reasonable adjustments. But we are in a situation now where we are definitely in a structural deficit that we either need a budget for, or charge fees for, or make program reductions, or some combination thereof. We've never, like most school systems, we've never fully budgeted, nor will we be fully budgeting our actual substitute costs. We have a lot of teachers who are going out on leave for childbirth and child rearing adoptions. And as you know, we have to have someone in the classroom. So the sub costs are a real thing for us. They always have been. But over the last several years, we have been under budget in that line, and then what happens is we end up having to make decisions about other lines, so we can't do certain things, or looking at our revolving accounts or other sources of revenue differently. So we're really trying to make an effort to boost that account up some, so we're not in that constant deficit spending model. We have taken some retirements already. I would say at this point we pretty much know who our retirements are. Those have all been factored into this budget. And as you know, we budget for less than what someone's going to go out at, so we always have some breakage. And we have a couple that I think are still just haven't quite made the decision yet, as we usually do. So, and then we've also tried to increase supplies, classroom supplies for kids, for teachers for kids. And we've made, as like I said before, we've already made some enrollment adjustments, but not all the enrollment adjustments that we will make. So the number that we're at right now will, continue to change some. The school committee has their public hearing, their vote next Thursday. So we'll be bringing our best effort to them. But the work will continue as it will for you on the town side, given the different variety of scenarios that we're going to be probably looking at. Some areas to watch, as always. Well, we're hating on you, to see what we're going to do for what's the number going to be. It's the best bet in town, and whether or not that number in fact passes in March. And as I already talked about collective bargaining, I've already talked about some of the special education impacts. So we have been planning on, and Stacy's already kind of percent. We've been
Blame it on Steve. No, just kidding.
just kidding.
He's not here.
He's not here.
So we've built our level services model off a 5% increase. So clearly, you can do the math. 1% is about $740,000. So if we had to go to 4%, then that's an additional $740,000 reduction. We have to get to this because we have going back to some of those structural deficits. So we have structural deficits in the current year that we're in that we're not budgeted for. Those expenses aren't going to go away unless we make reductions, but we're carrying those again, obviously, into next year. So we're kind of in a situation where the budget's costing us more because of some of those reasons rolling forward. We rolled over it higher than 5%. We continue to refine and look at opportunities for savings and efficiencies, but we are looking probably at about an $800,000 to $1 million reduction to get the 5% right now. So, which we're prepared to do. I mean, some of it is we would do anyway. It's the enrollment shifts that we get, and happens to be kind of going into the middle school this year. So the impact is different as opposed to one classroom somewhere. Most of our classroom sections at all elementary schools generally at 3, and we have several at 4. And as we've talked about before, it just starts getting tougher the fewer sections you have to make that cut, because you just can't spread. At some point you can't have 30 kids in a classroom. I suppose you could, but so we're running out of kind of that economy of scale to make some of those reductions. But we need to have some conversations about other things around how we can try to maximize our resources and become efficient, because that trend isn't going to change. I think we're stabilizing. You'll see some of the numbers here, but I don't think there's any reason to believe that we're going to see any kind of huge spikes in elementary enrollment or enrollment across the board. So,
sorry, Frank,
yes,
to interrupt you, and I can hold questions if you want me to.
No, okay.
So in the letter from Tim today, Tim and Stephanie, I should say, you said in this first bullet, you've said this to me verbally, so thank you for putting it in writing, that the 5 would be larger than 7 without those reductions.
Yes.
Do you want to explain that a bit?
The 5 would be what?
So the 5% growth would be north of 7% if you just didn't do anything.
Yes.
And you're actually making cuts to bring that to 5.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, are many of which we would do anyway. So, but some of which we would not. So we've got to make some decisions, and we're prepared to continue to look at the budget. One of the things that I had talked to the budget subcommittee and then the school committee about is that our plan administratively is to bring a level funded budget as an exercise for the committee and for us, as to see if we were level funded, what kind of cuts would we have to make, and how would we prioritize those cuts? I certainly hope we're not even thinking.
Level funded.
You mean 70.4 million?
Same
0%.
Same amount of money next year.
74.15.
Exactly.
So
Right.
that's a 0% change.
Right. And it's not, we're not looking to scare people. And as you can imagine, we start talking about reductions in a school system, people start to get nervous, and we don't want to create fear and panic, clearly. But we have to go through the exercise, I think. And because at that point, that will give us, I think, kind of the priority going down and the priority coming back up. And that information, I think, puts us in a good situation to be able to make some adjustments and be more nimble throughout the spring as we kind of head into town meeting and prepare for the possibilities that might come out of the override.
And certainly some of our neighboring communities have had to go through over the past few years.
Yeah.
Now, Frank, in your 5, does that include the changes you make because of enrollment, like shifting
Yes.
at the middle
Yes.
school and whatnot?
Well, not all of that.
Yeah.
Not all of that. Yes.
It's about 1.5.
So from there, we are proposing in FY27 year one, 2.350 is our priority through with an override vote. And then many of you have seen these slides as we go. So you can see with the level service and the addition, assuming 5%, with that addition and those priorities, what the total budget would be for FY27, what the proposed budget would be. And next slide, please. So what we did here was really try to kind of higher level categorization of, and I think Stephanie and Tim did a really nice job at this. I can't remember which meeting it was, but at several meetings, yes. And kind of trying to roll this up a little bit more. But these are the categories, and I don't think there's anything on here that would surprise anybody. We have built into FY27 some of those structural deficits that we just got done talking about. So we're carrying money in the budget for athletics, for example. And we are carrying money in the budget for substitutes. We are carrying the money in the budget for ESPs, paraprofessionals, who we had to hire as a result of student programming needs that we had to hire after town meeting voted our budget for this current year. So they were not budgeted for, but they came on board as a result of changes in programming. So general and special education transportation, that includes everything from trying to provide some relief for parent associations around the cost of field trips, curriculum-based field trips. And then you can see we talked about the core courses at the high school and elective courses. So we're not talking about 18 people here. We're just talking about being able to add a couple more core teachers to the core content areas, and then trying to add some additional electives. And that could be one of the same depending on who we hire and what the program of studies ends up looking like. And then we've also added adaptive physical education, which is something we should have been offering by law for a while. We do provide some programming around adaptive PE for students, but we do not have an adaptive PE program per se.
So Frank, we've used this number. Does this include fringe benefits?
No. We had this conversation.
Yeah, but I want to be clear. So this would have then a percentage impact on the health insurance side too.
It would.
But you also have
And Medicare payroll
reductions
tax.
up front too. Yeah, so it could be.
I just want to be clear, right? We would need to carry an additional 400. I don't know, Stacy, some number, 400,000 or something.
Yeah, I mean,
depending on the number of people.
yeah, the pension piece would be lower because you're math teachers, but some might be ESPs, some might be non-math teachers eligible.
And I don't.
I did when I gave my number to
Yeah.
But we can't be zero.
Yeah.
So
But this 4.5 million is programmatic, exclusive. This is exclusive of salaries, personnel.
no, it's not.
This is all, this is.
Substitutes, ESPs, it's PD, it's not supported. They're hiring teachers.
Okay.
What it is exclusive of is the one-time cost of a literacy curriculum. So just a footnote on the bottom.
Okay.
We would be asking for a separate article for that because that's not an ongoing cost.
Your one-time costs are all separate. With that, you've been very clear about. But I think the issue is we need to gross up. We've put a fudge factor in the model for it, but we just need a precise.
Are there any other one-time costs in there, like technology and security or professional development? Are any of those bullets, would they sunset in one fiscal year or two? Like startup costs, I was reading the memo, so there's license fees, that's annual. Material. Startup costs, like, could you, maybe for the superintendent's budget that then feeds the manager's budget, maybe it'd be helpful within that 4.5 to show what would persist and what would be potentially a 1 or 2 year episode of spending. It's still cost,
Yeah.
but it may not go into the base. And if you could do that, whether it's, break it out, I think that would be useful.
Yeah, we can go through the exercise. I think one of the things too, with we're carrying an estimate of $850,000 for the K through 5 literacy program. FY27 outside for a separate article. In FY28, there is about $180,000 built in, $160,000 built in for the ongoing costs that are associated with it, either one of the literacy programs that we're piloting. It's just a year-over-year cost that you incur through consumables, through digital uploads, upgrades to the program. So that is an ongoing cost, right? But there could be, and we'll take a look at it. We don't have an entirely clear picture because we haven't picked the program yet on what the professional development cost is going to be. And I do think there'll be that natural ramp up, right, in the first year with professional development, and then it starts to become, I think, more maintenance as we go. But we don't. But we can. It's a great question.
So can I also just hone in at they're in the bottom corner, but FY27 850 K through 5 literacy, the number we've been carrying was 587, and also FY29 700 for math, we've been carrying 500. So it seems like those numbers have gone up a bit.
I don't know where you got the 587 from. Did I give that to you?
You guys presented that number, 587 to
I wasn't
500.
feeling well.
But
I
again,
remember, I don't know if it was COVID, but I was sick.
touche, Frank.
I was feverish. Maybe come to the meeting.
Touche.
I didn't know what I said.
Okay. What I'm just trying to say is, like, I want to focus. That's a $450,000 differential. We should, if that's correct, I just want everyone to. We need to put that in the model.
There's no
But
question that.
I thought that wasn't in the model. That's not in the model.
No, of course it's in the model. It's a one-time expense. So you're right. It's not recurring.
So-
But the 450.
Can I ask my question differently?
Sure.
Separate articles for one-time curriculum costs, FY27, is a Springtown meeting request?
Yes.
So why would,
The model has 6 rows of one-time expenses, such as the planning board's master plan
Okay.
and zoning recodification,
Okay.
right? And the WPS literacy and math programs are in the one-time, right?
Got it.
So there is one. It just comes out of free cash,
got
right?
it, so they're, okay.
And my point is, we have 1.64 million in here, and that's 1 point. Sorry, no.
Oh,
We have no. That's including the planning board and everything. We have 1.1 million in here, and they're showing 1.55. So, like, that's fine. I just want people to know that if that's the number we're going with, we added money to the budget.
Each one of the two, we're looking at 2 still. We're hopeful by mid-March that the teams will make a decision around which way to go. They both package professional development differently too. So there's the biggest difference in cost is around how they treat their professional development. One company, it's all outsourced, it's a menu, you kind of have to arrange it yourself, picking different vendors that they recommend. The other one is built in. So that has an impact clearly on that total cost in the first year, because the first year that professional development is built in for the most part. But we'll know prior to town meeting better what that number will be.
Can I ask a question? When will you have some leading indicators on the tier 2, the 0.5 math specialists? That can,
Wasn't it 2.5 math specialists?
It's 2.
From the spring?
0.5 at each school.
Yeah.
When do you think you'll have some sort of leading indicators on
As
that?
in whether any kids are going to be National Merit Scholar finalists or
I was
You're doing a trajectory.
thinking if you're looking at your
yeah.
year-over-year
Like number of
IEP for involving math services, or
Yes,
something.
we could look at that. It's hard to know whether or not we'll see any kind of impact on MCAS because it's 1 year of data, right? So I will say that I think to a school, people are people cannot believe the difference that it makes to have a tier 2 person who is specifically there for that purpose. They've just never had it. So some of this is going to be kind of some of this year has been, what are these people going to do, right? And finding their way, and then building those relationships with teachers so the teachers feel comfortable having them working with kids. There's pull out, there's push in, but we are definitely servicing kids, and there's just no question it's going to make a difference. Now, I don't know that we'll have any kind of pre-post data to really talk about, but we can get anecdotal data.
And Dr. Hackett, that's different than special education circumstances.
Yes, it's all tier two. Yeah.
I was talking about like a leading indicator or some measure that can compare math to math. So is it not specific to measuring SPED services, but just a way to see if there's been, any sort of measurable impact from those? More thinking to, once we come to talking about this and override and putting FY29 math curriculum, is how to articulate that impact.
I think it's going to be anecdotal for now, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think we can probably, as you're sort of talking about it, I'm thinking about, we can probably collect touch points, sort of student service, like, number of cases in their caseload, like, because they'll have record keeping on that.
I'm sorry.
I know where you're headed
I'll
with it.
get out of a theoretical conversation.
No. I mean, I know where you're headed, but I think for the first year at least, there are data we will have, and we can.
Oh, part of the first year
assess.
is trying to figure out which data they should be collecting, right? And then, as we move into the pilot, as we move into actually implementation of a math curriculum, those positions, and we are proposing another 0.5, making one full at each elementary school, will be instrumental in helping even implement the curriculum, right? Because it's a resource that we currently don't have to help teachers just with all of the work. And I'll tell you, the literacy program is a ton of work for teachers, and it is a heavy lift. And they're doing a great job with the pilot, but they're definitely going to need our support as we look to implement next year.
Can I just make, so I will make the point, because it's, I think a lot of people just don't realize this. Our shift to a literacy curriculum this time will really only be the second time in Winchester that we've had a district-wide literacy curriculum. The last time that was implemented, units of study, was the first time that I am aware of that we had a district-wide literacy curriculum. Prior to that, it was entirely building-based or teacher-based. So this is, it's a shift. And I know sort of from evidence we've collected in the past that the units of study rollout was not particularly successful, at least at first. My understanding is the materials showed up sort of at or slightly just after the beginning of the school year. There wasn't necessarily the time to do the professional development, which in our district tends to happen in a couple of days before we open to students, to get the year kicked off. So that never actually got off on a particularly awesome foot.
Well, I think, also these curriculum are different in terms of the expectation of the teachers and how much they have to do on their own, right? So, and society is not a plug and play, right? There was a lot of teacher prep, a lot of teacher work that had to go into it. So that ramp up takes time. And I will say, I hear tell that both of the curricula that we're looking at right now, there's a lift there, and we're trying to do the best we can to make sure that that doesn't fall all on individual teachers, so that we can really make sure we provide the support. So when then people talk about a math curriculum, we just have to really be careful that we're just not burning people out. And we've got to get the literacy thing up and running and going well. That's not to say we're not working on math, but in terms of going to teachers and saying, okay, you ready to pilot a math program? That would be a short conversation for me. So then you can just see how we've carried out the $4.5 million over the course of, we took it out over 3 years because we believe that this is the correct implementation schedule. If we needed to take it over 4, we could make some adjustments. Bless you.
Curriculum-wise, sorry, I've landed in my sweet spot here. Curriculum-wise, if this doesn't happen,
Which is this?
this elementary literacy, if these dollars don't materialize, what will the elementary literacy look like
We're not even contemplating the question.
You have
I mean, because it depends on where we land, right? I mean, if we have to come in with a level funded budget, I would say we are probably going to be a ways away from being able to do anything beyond what we're currently doing. We'll hold on to the pilot materials maybe, and they won't take those back. We've got great teachers. We got a lot, there's a lot of talented teachers, and I think we would work hard to build something internally based on our experiences. Because, as you also know, we've been providing professional development thanks to the separate article this year, not just on the programs we're piloting, but on elementary literacy practices, right? So, and all teachers have been getting that. So, we implemented UFly, which has made a tremendous difference for kids. So we do have good data on that. So a lot of good things have happened. It would be heart crushing if we weren't able to take this next step, but then it would just depend on what kind of.
Can I add also that at the state, the literacy bill that's going to the state is going to add $25 million to purchasing literacy curriculum statewide. So if that passes through the Senate, there will be other sources of funding potentially available.
Do we think we're going to get some of that, or will that go, what's that formula going to be? What's the guess? Anybody?
I could tell you what my guess would be.
I mean, I don't.
However, we just got a tutoring grant.
Literacy launches, this is year 3 of it, to be clear.
But no, I'm just saying, if there's $25 million to launch it statewide, because it's going to be mandated, state, Senate, and the House,
Right.
we could be left out of that, right?
We'll have to wait and see.
Well, how much literacy launches money did we get? The discretionary program for the last 2 years that the governor had?
How much have we gotten?
Yes, it was 25. And now there's 25 to Michelle's point coming.
Zero.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, we got a tutoring grant.
Well, we don't have
We
it
got
yet.
zero in the literacy.
We just got it.
Okay, so
We can hope.
So we're talking about what happens if we don't have an override, and I think the answer is it's very hard to do these investments because we're going to be struggling on level. Do you want to say
So
something,
with
Stephanie?
literacy, it'll take longer.
Yep.
Until we have one,
Yeah.
basically.
Take longer, and it will.
So already a lot of these programs are phased out over time. So FY '27, the priorities, they actually cost more, but we kind of spaced them out. When we went through that as part of State of the Town, we saw phase 1 of 3, right? So we've already tried to smooth it out as much as we can. With no override, it's just going to take slower. It's going to go slower. It's going to go longer. It's, right now we're at 0.5 math interventionists, right?
That's what you'll stay for, if that's
We won't
what you
have
probably
them.
say.
Maybe. But I want to also be clear. I want this, particularly the select board, to hear this. These numbers are actually slightly more front-loaded than the state of the town numbers were. I'm looking at the state of the town numbers. You guys presented 2.3. That's 50,000 up. The second year, you guys had 1095. So that's gone up by 500, and then the last year was 552, so that's actually gone down. So you've basically pulled year 4 into year 2. Fair enough. I just want everyone to be aware of all the numbers I've been showing the select board as it relates to the 3-year override and the 4-year override and the operating reserves are off of 2.3 million, 1095, 552, and then there's about 500 in the last year. That has been moved roughly into year 2. So that's point 1. And point 2, not to beat it to death, we had 1.1 million of one-time costs, and here we're showing 1.55 of one-time costs.
Can I draw your
No,
attention
but-
to the gray asterisk? It says
Costs-
costs are estimates. So we have,
Sure.
we don't even know what our literacy program is.
This is not a criticism of this. This is not a criticism of the school committee. What I'm saying, I just want everyone to be aware of this, is that the numbers I've been presenting at the select board night after night are a slower rollout and a lower one-time cost than you are currently showing us. That's my simple point.
And I believe that is the select board's authority, right, to decide what the number is going to be that you're going to move forward and what the timing of the rollout of those funds would be. And we're prepared to adjust based on where you land. So, yeah.
But Dr. Hackett, if there is an override that's passed, I think the select board has made it clear that they support an override, right? The size of it depends on how many of these things that get funded. Literacy is a priority, I think, of the community and certain schools and the select board. That would be a primarily funded initiative, right?
I think the priorities are year 1, year 2 to 3, right? I mean, we've front-loaded the priorities for year 1. We believe that and some of that's the structure, covering a structural deficit, which is going to be real, but we can make some adjustments if needed. And then year 2 is what we think these are really, for the most part, these are all curriculum-based and curriculum-related. So we've never had math specialists until this year. So it's been great to have them, and we've got 0.5, and we'd love to have another 0.5 at each school next year, but we don't have that 0.5 now. So, the question is so hypothetical to me around what would we do, what we do is depending on the number that people land on, and not to put that on you, but it is true. And we've tried to build this process, and I think the committee has done a great job in really being thoughtful about being able to build up and come back. We are very clear about our priorities. I mean, there is no question we know what our priorities are. And I would also say that, we're going to start to run into issues with kids going to Winchester High School if we don't add some staff there, because they're not going to be able to get through the pathway that they want to get through in order to move on to do what they want to do outside of the high school. So, we can make any adjustments that are needed, and obviously we would. But I would say it's a pretty good representation of our priorities. And that first bucket is our first, I think, bolus of priority.
I mean, I will say two things. So, in response to your question, first, obviously many of us watched the meeting on Monday night, right? And I've pulled up the model. The numbers that were proposed for an operating override by 2 members of select board were the reality of that number was that we would not even be able to implement the literacy curriculum based on my sort of back of the envelope calculation. We would not be able to do a full implementation with an $8 million operating override of more than maybe half of the literacy curriculum, and literally everything else on here would not be fundable.
So Tim, you can make choices. An $8 million override is an $8 million override. School committee can make choices. That does not mean you will only do half. You will choose to invest that as you wish.
No, but what I'm saying
think
is
that's
it
a
will,
fair
because of the
assessment.
structure. No, it's a very fair assessment, Michelle, because the structural deficit that we are facing and the reality, I've run the numbers. We may disagree, but it will get us to level services and nothing else.
We'll see. We haven't seen the superintendent's budget yet. We haven't seen the town manager's budget yet. We may have some additional revenues.
Well, the select board has already voted on a series of priorities on the municipal side. If you bake those in based on the votes the select board has already taken, none of the priorities that are listed here are fundable in an $8 million override scenario, period. There is absolutely no way. And the point that I was trying to make in my memo today with Stephanie is the reality of the situation is if you actually bake in the move down from 7 point something to 5%, that already requires cuts that will be challenging for us to make and conversations that we're going to have with the community in order to get to that level. Our number, if we just go in this year for level services, would be well in excess of 7%. That's not unusual. There are communities all around the Commonwealth where they're doing 7, 8, 9, 10% year over year level services growth. We have committed to 5%. That's not going to be easy to get to. And so, having run the model myself, unless someone can actually show me a different idea for the model, I believe that we will be able to get a portion of the literacy implementation if we even make bigger cuts to the level services, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you for that comment. It's a select board decision, and we will make that decision probably on Friday, February 13th.
And we await,
My point is not to debate. Sorry,
Yeah.
whoever I cut off, Frank.
No.
My point is not to debate the select board discussion from Monday night, which is a conversation we'll keep having. It's just to get from our principal input, as we got from Stacy, on where MIA is going to be, and where OPEB is going to be, and pension contributor retirement is going to be. It's to get from you guys the most accurate inputs we have. So we're not double counting, or we're not saying, oh, the literacy overall is going to be, as I have in the model, 587, when now I'm saying 850. We just need to have the right numbers in front of the select board for that decision. And so that to me is the key. I want to understand, and I want all four of my colleagues to understand what you're showing us, and we can put it in. And then to Michelle's point, we can have different policy perspectives on how we react to those numbers, but we should understand what you're showing us and reflect it in the model.
Right. I mean, we started this process, like I said, in a time where we weren't even sure what we were going to pilot for curricula, right? So the numbers we've had all along have been the best numbers we have at that time.
So it's not a criticism. It is not a criticism.
Well, I'm taking it.
I'm just saying we need to take your numbers.
So no,
Stacy's
yes,
numbers,
you do.
Stacy, your numbers move too, right? The point is, I just want to get the right numbers down.
These numbers that you will
They'll be Chris's numbers
tonight are the best numbers we've had, and I feel they may be a little bit high, and if they are, we'll adjust. But until we know exactly what that curriculum is going to be and what the professional development needs are, it needs to be updated. So
it needs to be updated. That's all.
It will not go higher.
So I want to, it's an hour and 20 minutes. I knew we want to hear from Capital, but I want to make sure we have any more slides.
There are, but not that we need to go through. If you have questions on them, just you shoot me an email or let me know.
No, I just want to make sure we leave time for Capital. So if people want to see more or ask more questions, I don't want to pivot off.
Michelle, could you be really clear what the select board needs from school committee additionally around the budget to,
I mean, the
to answer some of
the
these
superintendent's budget would be helpful to inform the town manager's budget to understand sort of where, so there's level services is 5%. Are there some ads you'd want to have override or not? Is this all just override or is there something else? If it's half of the curriculum, is it the full curriculum? The superintendent's budget would be useful to have, whatever you call that these days, so that it can be input into what's due February 15th. If we can get that before, there's an opportunity for schools to speak at the special town meeting as well. So what does 27 look like? What does 28, 29, 30 look like in terms of estimates? That's what we need. And I would like to see if there's anything there that's one time, albeit if the number's higher or lower in that bottom left corner, what of those things are recurring? What of those things are one time? Because that does impact, and Paris is holding those lines. So I think that's what I'd like to see.
And the other thing,
And I'd love a fringe
FTE
factor.
Versus
FTE
FTE and benefit eligible.
Thank you. It's FTE, benefit eligible, a rough percentage of how many you think will take the benefits. You'll use some factor on that, right? And then what is the average benefit? So that's an Andrew Stacy.
I would say 70% of the health insurance people take that benefit.
Yeah, so look, it's basically how many of them are there how many of them are benefit eligible, multiply that by 70, multiply that by 18,000 or whatever, so we can fringe up the numbers. That would be huge.
I just want to make sure we get you guys what you need and not also ask them to do a lot of work that is unnecessary. So if those are the three priorities, then that we can focus on.
When you present your January 31st, or next week when you do your budget,
February 5th.
which budget, what will you be, because I assume that then that's what's coming back to the town manager. What is that budget?
Well, it goes to the school committee, and then they decide what goes to the town manager.
And are you doing two or are you doing one? Because that's the key question, right? Are you doing a yes with an override budget, yes, and then no override budget?
I think we can pivot on it. We've got so much done. Like, it is just a matter of just saying what's the number, right, for us, because we've already identified all the priorities. We already know what the staffing looks like. We've already made all the adjustments we think we could. Well, we've got more adjustments to make, but we are ready to go. We just need to know what the number is. So it's really hard to have the conversation until we know the number. What I don't want to do, as I said, and I know you're not suggesting this, but certainly something like tonight will be what I'd be recommending to the school committee, right? Assuming that an override would pass and that number would be in that year one, and then something less than that, and then we are working on a level funded budget just in case.
Okay, so you're working on the two. You're working on a budget that looks like that,
Yep.
and a level funded.
Yep. But, I mean, I'm assuming that you want the budget that the school committee would be moving forward, whatever that number is going to be, and you could decide what you would do with that.
Well, again, this is something that I think we're sort of figuring out as we go, right? So I think it's clear that the community also, I mean, again, without getting super granular, we're not going to get all the way down to the, this or this position. the level funded is critical, and then I have to do.
Funded or service, time out.
Well, I mean, the level service, I'm sorry, right, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. The level service, which we saw.
5%.
Right. And then this is really up to the voters, right? I have nothing to do with this, right? It's all of you. Neither is Frank.
So I think that there's an assumption, though, that we would, I think there's one that if an override passes, and both sides can develop that budget, fairly straightforward, right? The other question is what happens if an override doesn't pass?
Yeah.
And I don't know that you can just go level services, because level services, you wake up with some number north of 5 million, whether it's 6.5 or 7 of free cash burn. And that is a big decision that the select board and the school committee and ultimately the town manager have to make about whether we're putting a budget on the floor of town meeting or putting a budget in the hands of FinCom that has $5 million of free cash burn or some number north of that. I would not support that.
And that's why we're doing the exercise of the level funded, right?
That's what you
It's
are,
good-
yes.
Yeah.
So Derek, I know you got to run, so.
Yeah, I need to run, but, so for me, forget the override. I think we could manage 4 million as a deficit. And so if you, like I said, if you increase revenue to 13 million, just happens to be almost the same amount as 5%. So you'd have a deficit now of about 2 million more than 4 million, which is around 6. And so that would be the homework assignment to figure out what we could do to get to 6 without touching the 5%. And it's not unusual at this time that we have a greater deficit than what we end up submitting. So I'm not overly pessimistic, but we just have work to do on that.
But I think that's an
The deficit
important.
goes into town meeting is the deficit on paper, and then,
Right.
the reversions happen, and state aid gets finalized, and money comes in.
This is
So-
I
a
have
critical
one last
policy
thing.
decision. God, Bear.
It's just, I have no desire to stand in front of town meeting and submit a budget of break even, just so everyone knows. And so everyone can hit FinCom that we do, crazy stuff. So we are okay with 4 million. We can afford with that free cash of 23 million. It makes sense that 4 million would still be okay. And so that,
And that
I put out there.
Okay, and I think that's a very helpful view from FinCom. I don't agree with that. So I think that it's important for the policy, the elected policymakers to also have a view on this choice. I'm not going to suggest free cash usage should be 0, but I also don't think that 4 million is a number I've seen any substantiation for. Apart from, Derek, really respect your view, but I would pick a smaller number than that. And in 2019, the select board directed the town manager and the superintendent to break even, let's be clear. And operating reserves were lower at the time.
In 2019, our reserves were at 10.4%. Our reserves are almost 18%
I hear
right
you.
now. So the fact that they said break even or do closer, we weren't sitting on $8 million more than we have now. So the fact that, we can discuss that too. That's a town meeting decision, I suppose.
No, but it's
if
a
$4 million
select
in
board
free cash
decision.
could be used, and we just put an extra $1 million in the school's budget at spring town meeting, we used a lot of money to balance the budget. Now we used 2 point what of free cash to balance the budget last
And
year.
let's be clear, FinCom opposed that.
Right.
As an advisor, you can ultimately, you guys do it.
FinCom
I'm just saying, there's nothing worse than you all submitting budgets greater than a break even, and I have to stand up there and submit something that no one is in favor of. And so it's just an utter waste of time.
I hear you on that.
I'll do it, but I'm just going to be really clear that I'm the only one in this entire room that wants this budget.
But I think the question of what
just
level
unfair for us to do that.
But Derek, FinCom did not go out last year, right? And not everyone on the select board went out last year and said we're happy to burn 4 million of free cash, right? And on the math specialist question, which was the primary ad, right? People took a view that was not okay, and that's okay. Let's be clear. People can have different policy views on this question. So I appreciate FinCom says 4 million is an acceptable level of free cash, and I appreciate Michelle.
Directionally acceptable. We did it last year. We can absorb it with the free cash. That's your
judgment.
As an advisor,
Right.
Just telling you, giving a baseline and throw it out.
That is your judgment, right? School committee is saying 0. They're going to go with 0 use of free cash, right? I am comfortable.
We're going to make that budget. They're not necessarily going to submit that budget.
Okay. So my point is that school committee has taken kind of the opposite view, right? Which is they're going to break even with their budget, right?
No.
They're going to propose, they're
Well,
going
they
to.
don't want to, but they're gonna
They're
prepare
gonna
something.
build one so that they
Level,
can.
So 0%, right, and then build a
That's not happening either, though. A 0% budget is not happening.
Can I just make my point? My point is FinCom has a view that we can use a certain level of free cash. School committee, in your austerity budget, let's use the Lance term for 2019, is taking a much more conservative view and bringing the budget down to meet your revenues. That is what when you said we're going to be level funded, right? 70.4 million is 70.4 million, right? What you're doing is imposing a fairly substantial degree of cuts on the district to get to that number, right?
As an exercise in determining priorities, right?
I get it. I get why you're doing it.
Yep.
What I'm saying is, I think that this is a decision that the select board and the school committee, I think, have to make about what they're putting forward. And I appreciate FinCom's view that we can use $4 million of free cash, and Michelle has agreed with it. I don't agree with that, and I think we have to have a view on what we want this quote austerity budget in a no override scenario to look like that goes to FinCom. That is all, and I think that is a select board's decision on the municipal side and the school committee's decision on the education side.
Without taking out the model, right, you're afraid that using 4 million in free cash will shorten the duration of an override?
No, this is an override fails.
And a no
No,
override
in the event
scenario.
that an override fails, but would we still be comfortable using 4 million in addition to the override ask?
No, we're not talking.
We're talking,
about-
sorry, if the override
This was a
succeeds,
failure.
there's no discussion about using free cash, right? If we have to use free cash on a year, we pass an override, we have really big problems on our hands, right? I'm talking about in the scenario where an override fails. That's what they called the austerity budget last time. The question is, what level of free cash do you assume in there? Derek and Michelle have said 4. I respect that view. All I'm saying is I would pick
Can I
a
explain
smaller.
what 4 is? Maybe.
Sure.
Because it's just not a magic number. It's if everyone is spending what we talked about, we currently have, so unless the town comes back and says they want less services than what we currently do today, you just ran it out another year, we're in a deficit somewhere between 6 and 4 million if we sharpen our pencils on potentially getting down to 4. That's where that number comes from. And so the austerity thing is, I'm having trouble. It's just the run rate of our current spend with the current services. That's what I view it as, is that we would need, if we didn't do anything, between 4 and 6 million, we'd be taking out of free cash.
So can I I want to be very clear, because I think we're talking about 3 different things, and I think part of what we're challenged by as a committee is that we're basically talking about 3 different budgets. And in those 3 different budget streams, I drew a little, for those of you who can see this, I drew like a little. So we're sort of essentially talking about
He has young children.
3, yeah. But we're talking about 3 different budget streams, and sort of to Derek's point, right? I think what you're sort of talking about is this middle way. And the middle way is, wherever we land, right? So right now it's, roughly it feels like about a $6 million deficit is what I think you're saying with level services, shall we say, in some way. You're saying sharpen the pencils, maybe take it to about 4 million, right? Which is sort of like, it's this branch off here, which I agreed with Paris. Like, I totally respect that. That's I think a good way to look at it, because it doesn't require us to lose major services in the town, right?
For example, last year we were like 5 million deficit. We ended up 3-point-something million. So we were able to find,
The 7.2 may come down, is your point, a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's override fails. We use some amount of free cash. We'll hopefully find savings, and we'll get to this sort of branch over here, which is closer to $4 million in free cash use. Paris, what you're talking about is sort of something over here, right? And you're sort of at this hash mark here, right? Which is,
I don't know
that hash mark in my mind is like, it's literally the port.
I stand up and say, I want the school to cut 4 million, and this is where everyone.
Right, no, but let's be clear. The school committee in themselves are. I'm going to make 2 points. I did not say break even. I said we can have a number of free cash. I would like the select board to have an opinion on this. 2 people have. Michelle expressed a number. She's comfortable with 4. I will I will come up with a number between 0 and 4. I'm not saying it's 0, okay?
Right, yeah.
And I would think the other select board members should weigh in on this, because I think that's a really critical policy decision about what we're communicating to voters are the stakes of the override in terms of what we're going to cut or not. The other point I'll make is, Derek, I'm not, if the override fails, we're not trying to leave FinCom kind of hanging out to dry, because the fact of the matter is, in February, on February 9th, the select board and the school committee, with whatever austerity budget we come up with, are going to stand up and say that to town meeting. The whole point of February 9th is to say to town meeting, if the override succeeds, here's what we're going to bring. If the override fails, here's what we're going to bring. So it's not to, and let's assume we're going to go with $2 million in free cash. We're not trying to pin that on FinCom, because
It's
we
just the
ourselves
way
are
the
developing
process
it.
works.
Please let everyone, we need to let people finish.
It's fine. No, it's a good exchange, Derek. I respect your view. I appreciate you have to stand up and say it, but you could just say, the select board told me to say this. The school committee told me to say
But
this.
just because revenue grows 3.1, 3.2%. Everyone submits a budget greater than 3.2%. There's our math.
Right, but
Math will always have a
But
deficit.
to say you'd be held at this year's number, $70 million of current wouldn't be next year's $70 million. It would at least be $70 million plus 3%, at which our levy grows without an override.
There's no way this superintendent's bringing a level funded budget as a recommendation to the school committee, just to be super clear, and I know you get
go to
that.
town meeting that
No,
way
of
either.
course
The
not.
fact that you'd be held at current year
Right.
dollars
What I don't want
next
to,
year makes
I
no
don't want to be in a
sense.
position where we haven't even had the conversation about the priorities in a substantial way, so that we can make adjustments to wherever this number lands and wherever it goes. I mean, I think it's just the right thing to do.
On February 9th, we have to stand up in front of town meeting. We do not have until the end of April. And we have to tell people, if the override succeeds, here's all the stuff. That's easy. If the override fails, here's what we're going to propose to you. And FinCom and Michelle have said that's a $4 million free cash burn, and some number of cuts that would still probably have to be made. I would not go as high as 4. I think that last year when we tried to go up to a $4 million free cash burn, we got a lot of pushback on that. And so to say we're just going to go back again with 4 would strike me as high. So I will put my number out. I will say I would support a $2 million free cash burn.
Okay. Derek, I know you need to leave. Can we move on to capital, and can we do it quickly? Because I think I was not hoping that we'd be here for 2 hours, but.
It'll be quick.
I would like
Just
to know, though,
Pars's
where
point,
where
we
the select board is going to
should
have
know
this
before
conversation.
the
Thank
9th,
you.
and we don't have any meetings
We'll
scheduled.
have a meeting next week. Let's just come out of it tonight. I've got an update that I need to share with select.
Can we just get it done now, though? Because now
No.
Parrish has his say. You've had your say. I haven't heard from Anthea or Mike at all. And this does seem incredibly important, and we have a very short time frame to get our heads around it.
We have,
I want to see 3 budgets. I want to see the full override pass. I want to see no override pass, no free cash. And I'm going to agree with I would say like 2.5 of free cash being spent.
Bill?
And I want to know what's getting cut if we don't get the full override and we can't use free cash from schools and from the town. I need to know that to inform this town. I need to know that to inform my vote.
Well, and I think
we will have a meeting next week.
But this is the budget summit, Michelle. This is where we're
That's
supposed to
right,
get
Bill.
on the
We are
same
90
plane about what we
minutes-
need to know.
No, we are hearing information. We are 90 minutes in to this meeting. We have materials that we need to approve as a board that need to go in a packet tomorrow. I have an update from my conversation to the ZBA that I need to share with the select board this evening. We cannot spend 15 minutes or 20 minutes debating theoretical free cash usage. We haven't even seen the town manager's assumptions.
I'm not debating it. I have said one thing this entire time. I have not asked a single
we need to have
question.
We have another meeting.
We can have another meeting.
We can have another meeting.
I thought that was the purpose of this meeting.
So did I.
The purpose of this meeting was to understand what budget approach we were going to be taking moving forward. I've heard.
So if we have that meeting on Monday or Tuesday, we still don't have time to have this budget approach before the 9th? I don't understand.
Well, we have a briefing on Monday and a briefing on Tuesday, so if we have it next week, then I agree we would have it for the 9th, so.
Yeah.
And we need to
Chris and
provide
Frank need
something to the school committee in advance of their February 5th meeting so that they can discuss and.
Well, and I didn't get to finish what I was saying, which is, and I think I'm not going to speak for the superintendent or Mr. Marin, but I think what we are struggling with as a committee is that, we've gone through the state of the town process. We've done a lot of data analysis. We've done a lot of potential budget scenarios, right? we are getting down to a point where, Mr. Senior has to actually submit budget on February 15th, right? We've already now, because of the delay in the budget summit, we've already now said, okay, we're not going to actually vote on our budget and discuss our budget until February 6th, which realistically only gives you essentially the week after we vote it, because you're going to have to put something up roughly a week after we come in. I think the biggest challenge that we're having right now, sort of the point that's been made, is there's sort of two areas in which, I know that Derek left, but there's sort of two areas in which I think we don't really have clear guidance as a school committee right now. One of them is, what does the override budget look like? Because there's a pretty wide range of potential scenarios for that haven't been decided. And that was my sort of range here for this is the override prong. And then I think, this discussion that you all had and hopefully have at another meeting is, what does that free cash usage look like in the event that there's a failure of an override? I think we've kind of said, okay, we're not going to do this level funded budget thing. But I think it's hard for us because the policy decisions are not at our table for the things that are sort of the inputs to the budget that we ultimately bring to you. So we can bring an ultimate number, a sort of large number of iterations on this, but there's a drop dead date, right? And so I think we as a committee, we have until next Thursday to vote a budget. And I think we need guidance. I hope I'm not overstepping here by saying this. I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody but myself at this point, because we've not debated this. But it's, I think we as a school committee need guidance so that they're not basically putting together 3, 4, 5 different budgets on what is the number for the override scenario, what is the number for the some free cash usage override failure scenario, so that we can actually present and vote on whether it's one or both of those at our meeting next week. So I think, that is the number one thing that I, as a representative of the school committee, would like to get out of the time between now and when we meet a week and a day from now.
Okay. And I think that's different than the last 2 budget summits we've had, which is normally you give us our request, the manager presents a budget, the manager balances a budget. You want us to say, here's your allowance.
Oh, we'll
give you the budget that spends the allowance.
If you want us just to go ahead and do what we would normally do, we'll do it.
I would love that.
Okay.
But we will also have a meeting.
See it at 10%.
But I would love to see. That's fine.
No, I'm just
So
kidding.
Roger has graciously said you can skip capital. However, I have a question for capital, which is, Roger, have you met with Chris yet? Or have you guys sort of, because town manager's capital plan, that ship has sailed. That it would have been done in January. I don't think we're going to have it. But do you guys have a chance to connect on capital plan and all that stuff?
Next Tuesday at 1.
Okay. And I'll also note the budget summit was pushed later at the request of some of the select board and also to include Mr. Senior. So it does shorten our window, but I think it was important for him to at least be in the room. So
I'm very excited about the tremendously easy process that's been.
Welcome aboard.
And it's been so incredibly hard to figure out people's positions. I am lost. I have no idea. I'll tell you directly, anytime you want.
Budget will be easy compared to this one.
It's gonna be a piece of cake. It's gonna be a piece of
you're going to
cake.
say something?
Oh, back to Dr. Matthews' point. I asked a minute ago and I'm still not clear. What does the select board still want from the school committee?
I would like-
Otherwise, we will continue on with our process
Right.
as it is. But it would be really great to know, leaving this meeting,
Yes.
what you need from us and by when.
Okay, so I think I'll try to answer that, and others should amend what I say. So I think that's a great question, Michelle. So I think the FTE count for the health insurance, I think, is one piece. Validating your numbers as it relates to when you're bringing your strategic additions is probably the other piece. The thing that I think you need from us, but I think it's probably going to be next week.
What you need from us, right?
No. But you need from us in order to then come back to us.
Yeah.
Right. It's a sort of like you need input to give us input. Right. It is. I think next week the select board needs to meet, needs to look at some numbers around different levels of free cash utilization. This is on the no override scenario, and to give both the municipal side and the education side a number to says, okay, well, let's just say for the sake of argument, if we used $7 million of free cash, you guys could probably come in at 5%, right? You would just come in at level services. If it's 4 million of free cash, what can you come in at? What can the municipal side come in at? If it's no free cash, what does both sides need to come in at? I think that's the exercise the select board needs to see the different options and then decide which one we're picking. Is that fair, Michelle? Because that's what because I think the thing is, you guys are coming in at 0% growth. And I think, Michelle, your view is, but why would you come in at 0, right?
Correct.
So I think what we need to do is to say, let's say there's no override and we're burning no free cash. You're at, I don't know, 1% growth. If we're burning 4 million of free cash, you're at X%. And if we're burning 7 million of free cash, you're at Y%. I think that's what we need, right?
Yeah.
That's the only way we're going to get clarity on this question.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way you think you'll get clarity on this question.
Yeah.
I think you could get clarity on, give us a budget, that's the superintendent's budget, put it with the town manager's budget, here's the deficit, here's the use of free cash.
And what
that would be pretty straightforward. But no, the two members of the select board feel strongly that we need to be.
What if the use of free cash? No, I'm sorry, but the use of free cash Derek suggested, I don't think the school committee and the town manager's budget would cover. So there's going to be, if their budgets come together and they say 7.2 of free cash, and Derek's saying use 4, how are we going to show what the 3 million of cuts are?
So, proposal.
That's why I think you can't just say, show us what you've got, and we'll. That would be use 7 of free cash. If we're using 4, you're going to have to make cuts. So is municipal. If we're using 2, if we're using 0.
All of that is not within the authority of the school committee, as you know. Right?
But I said the select board needs to give
I know. Criticism, as someone said to me earlier tonight.
Yeah.
I'll bring a recommended budget to the committee. They'll have the conversation like they do in any normal year. It may or may not be level services. It'll be around that number, but we may make some other adjustments to be able to put some things in that we don't currently have, and we'll do all that. We're ready to go. So that's what we'll do. And then we're going, like I said, through the exercise of doing a level funded budget so that we can make adjustments if conditions change. And Unit A just voted to approve the contract. 90% in favor, which is a number I've never seen before in my career.
93.
Close enough.
But still, that's tremendous.
Tremendous. 70% voted, 93. So we appreciate the union and the work. So
Excellent. Michelle, the last thing I would add to the what do we need is, I think Dr. Hackett nailed it, but in addition to how many FTEs and when is within that the 4.5 of asks, are any of those carve out anything that's one time or time limited? Maybe it's a 2-year span, maybe it's not a 1-year span. So within that ask of needs and wants, what things are straight to the recurring bottom line, or then anything on that slide that would be a 1 or 2 year window? I think in addition to what Pyra said, that would be the only thing I'd ask you to kind of carve out or identify and put $1 to.
But not as part of the level services.
Nope.
That would be
Correct.
Just as a secondary
Yes.
piece of analysis. Okay.
Yep.
Because level services would be nothing.
No, I think Tim Sheen's going back to that.
The override. Yeah, no, I'm just being clear, right?
Central services.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the fringe thing we asked you to look at is also for
Yes.
The override
scenario.
potentially. Yeah, no, I just wanted to be clear.
can I say, you guys know how to party. Like, I mean, you really do. You really do. This is fun.
Yes, if your idea of a party.
Right.
Just for Chris and for Stacy, and looking at the revenue assumptions, which doesn't give us kind of a full
No, these were more
dollar values. Yeah. When is that? Will that be February 15th? Will we have that?
Yeah.
And based on the directions that have been given over this long process that I'm jumping into here as we
Yes.
there's a couple of areas that I need to work with department heads to propose, fee changes and all, so that are in the board's jurisdiction, so you can approve them this spring for implementation next year, regardless of what we do, which will give us more revenue and a fairer fee schedule, period, compared to our neighbors. So that will generate more money, which is helpful all the way around anyways. Well, I can't change the governor's budget. I wish I could.
All right.
I would, since they've been here and sat with us for this whole time, I would like to give Capital a few minutes and punt them.
Go ahead.
Roger.
I was gonna say, unless someone uses this as your escape mode, Roger.
Yeah.
Welcome to Capitol Corner. We're all here in the corner. I'll be real quick. I heard the number 3.1% growth. We don't get that. We get 2.5% growth year after year. We get some money from investments. Stacy and I get together after the books close, and we figure out how much money we actually have between the two funds, and then we look at the incoming requests and we cry. And really, going forward, our fate is in the hands of what's going to go on in this override. We know we're vastly undercapitalized or overcapitalized, don't have enough funds, however you want to put it. We're doing very few things this spring. We rolled a lot of stuff into the fall. We're doing the carriage house funding in the spring, ADA funding in the spring. There's some discussion that is sitting up at the select board level about what to do with the Everett Ave culvert and the associated street flooding in that area. So we're looking for some direction there. There's stuff going on at South Res Dam that you're managing, and that may impact us in Springtown meeting, and then there's MS4. But that's all we're really doing for the rest of this year. FY28, the big things that we're looking at that we will somehow manage, and talk about things that could completely change depending on the outcome of the override. Got a piece of fire equipment that we have to purchase this year. Our still number one priority is the town hall HVAC, and if we're trying to get into that, that's so big. The windows that are associated with it and all the other restorations associated with it. Lincoln Flat work that's been sitting around for so long now. I don't know that we have good numbers on it anymore, but it's probably more expensive. It's definitely more expensive. Unfortunately, we're seeing rapid deterioration in the heating system at Ambrose. We were planning on that being out years, 2 or 3 years from now. We may need to pull that forward. And finally, this has been ongoing, and there are other sources of funds for this, not just capital, but Packer Ellis. We should start to hear some answers on that and some things that we need to do. I'm sure that everybody here is aware of how bad the seating area is and the failures that we've had there. We've got flooding issues when we get very bad downpours. So those are the sort of probably the highlight things that we're seeing come forward that we have to do one way or another. And that's really it. We're a very simple model. Money comes in, requests come in, we set priorities, make recommended priorities to the town manager
I believe you call it the Hunger Games?
Yeah.
It's already baked into their.
It's already baked in. It's only going to change by the decisions of the select board. We occasionally come in and ask for some free cash, and that's about it.
Okay. So the additional, the dam and engineering and flow studies for Everett Ave, that select board hasn't heard some of the details on that. Do you need that answer, careful Bill, by February 9th? Do you need that answer? I know we have to get it. When do you need it for CPC to sort of have direction? That's unrelated to this very specific budget summit, but I want to understand timing. We're going to meet next week. We're going to meet on the 9th.
Well, we've got the warrant closing on
Like March 12th or 13th?
13th.
Yes.
So probably back us up 2 weeks from that just to be able to make sure that we have our warrant
Okay.
in order.
So maybe I'll put on for the 9th. Okay. But I'll tee it up for the group in a posted meeting next week when we talk about free cash targets for the FY27 budget. That's going to be the topic. Okay. Thank you, Roger. We all know, so Roger, one thing that might be helpful for the town meeting on the 9th is, I know we have the packages and we have the detail behind the packages, A, B, C, D, E. Does it go up to H?
H.
And it has, it's this, and this. Are there some, and maybe it just updated timelines on cost estimates? Are they based on the, original engineering inflated to current costs and sort of just a high level cost for some of those? So like roofs are a thing. Is it like 1 million per roof? Is it, so a little, I just think it'd be useful for looking at a package, and the package is this. What's in that package at a high level, to the nearest $100,000 or something. Because I think some of those, you know, like HVAC was 4 million, was 6 million, now it's 9. Is that based on anything new, or is it just escalation? Which the number is the number. I'm just curious how we got to some of them. And I didn't ask you for that for today, but I think it might be helpful on the 9th to just have that either at table or as a presentation. Because I think we're going to have about 5 minutes each to speak, so maybe it should be at table. Looking at the moderator. But I think that, understanding what's in that.
Maybe.
So,
Yeah.
that would be good.
No, I thought talking about the night time.
The 9th.
The 9th,
Special
the
town
town
meeting.
meeting at the 9th is what I'm saying. Yeah, not spring.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the stuff that's up close, we have good numbers on.
Yes.
The stuff that's out years 3, 4, they're
Yep,
best guess.
sure. Okay. Any questions for capital? Look forward to you guys having your chat.
Our fate is in your hands.
Understood. All right, I do have an update for select board, and we do have some materials. I think, Paris, you have a memo for the 9th. Did Patty print that off?
Yeah, sorry, it was actually only for the select board members. to read,
Right, so I'm gonna adjourn the rest of it and then keep the select board back, because we do have.
I mean, you guys can read it, it's just a rough.
Do you have it down there? So, no, we can just wrap up the budget summit, but then I want to have, because I have FAQs to pass around for select board to approve, to go in the mailing for the 9th. So, any other questions before we wrap up? And select board has to stay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. Aye. School. Michelle. Aye. Okay, got it. 5-0.
Okay, thank you, WinCam, if it's even back there. Okay.